100% naked. Wow. So just saw these cyclists riding completely butt naked down Sunset in Silver Lake. I think a lot of things are going through my field right now. So one of the signs I saw was, it said, well, I saw one, "Can you see me now? Naked isn't wrong," or something like that, or like, love, beautiful, this is beautiful, I am beautiful. I saw a bunch of different signs, a bunch of different wordings and forms of describing and expressing what they were doing, or at least those individuals were doing. And it's actually been something that's been on my mind, or coming into my processing sphere lately. Is, okay, let's just get right to it. Society is a mental construct. Society is a growth from, and now this is where I don't have complete tactile like grasp of, meaning I don't know if society was literally born out of Ajna Chakra, which is the third eye. I don't know if it was born out of our energetic ascension and evolution away from the primate state that at this point in 2017, science has, we've pretty much confirmed that that's what happened. We're kind of like a larva state type of being over the past, I don't know, billions. Ask Neil deGrasse Tyson the exact date. The exact date. It's kind of Darwinian. My theory is that we do all come from Africa, or at least the genetic beginning of us comes from Africa. And then, to me, that's how you describe and account for the melanin spectrum, in terms of like the biological metamorphosis that we basically started as, well, that's the thing. I don't know if we all started in Africa. Maybe there's like other segments of the genus species that I don't know about. I'm just making it clear right now. My current standpoint with the information that I've come into contact with has led me to, grasp reality as we as the human Homo sapien current evolution of our species that we all started in Africa. I don't have dates and everything, and I don't want to get into Anunnaki stuff right now or whatnot, and Garden of Life and Eve and etc., etc. But let's just start with out of Africa as our baseline theory, without making this about an out of Africa theory video. This video is going to stay around the idea of, well, let's just start with that door handle that we started, or come back to the door handle we started with, which was this nakedness. Like, nakedness is okay, my nakedness is beautiful. Why am I wearing clothing? Why am I adorning my physical aspect in a way that I'm wanting to represent myself almost in some kind of self-expressionary way, self-expressionistic way, and so that's the idea that I'm currently at with it. It's we've evolved past our primary focal point of existence being the lower aspect of man. We're not in caves anymore. We're not chasing saber-toothed tigers, and we're driving machines and dressing up every day. And and this is really the important stuff, the only time you share your nakedness with anybody is in intimate relationships, unless your relationship with your physical body and your private inner intimacy space is different or modulated from this ground level that we're referring to right now. Because let's say for most of us in 2017, we're you know, we'll be intimate with a sexual partner. We're intimate with dogs and animals. I don't mean like, and let me clarify, intimacy doesn't mean sexual. You can be intimate and sexual. You can also be intimate and artistic, and intimate and conversation, and etc. etc. Like, the space that I think a lot of people share with their animals and their pets is a very intimate space. Sometimes one of the primary intimate spaces that they have in their lives, and this allows them to ground into their own intimate space within them through the reflection of this animal that is basically just providing pure tonality reflection. So outside of that, if you're gonna have all your clothes off, you're either showering, sleeping, having sex, showering, bathing, cleaning yourself of some kind. I mean, like, it's a stigma, like doctors that deal with nakedness, like there's a gynecologist like joke, there's a STD, going to get STD checked joke, because it's this breach of that intimate layer that ultimately separates the outside social construct from your inner, I don't know if I want to call it inner social construct, but it's like your inner identity. It's your, and so yeah, what the fuck is that? What is that membrane that separates and tells all of us this is appropriate, but this isn't? I'm comfortable with this, but not with that. I'm not comfortable with this. I'm comfortable with this though. This feels good. And so we all have our own barometers. And so driving past these people naked, it's like, to me, it kind of points at this healing that we're all going through collectively, through this mass trauma of over masculine tyranny for the past, since the beginning. As I guess it makes sense that that's the branch of our being that developed first in terms of asserting its will, and it's like, and so very much I see it as in terms of the anthropological growth and evolution, since societies started happening, meaning before societies it was just tribal communities, I guess. Jared Diamond, it's not Jared Diamond, something Diamond. Guns, Germs, and Steel is the name of the book. Something Diamond. This guy has an amazing. You Google Guns, Germs, and Steel Diamond. I forgot the guy's first name, but his last name is Diamond, and he's got an amazing lens on basically what's happened and caused there to be, caused have-nots and have-nots to be, in terms of the social separation of those who have, don't have not. But not getting too much in that right now. Staying on particularly just this growth of our mass evolution in society. And so what is this video about? I'm trying to stay on topic here, but there's so many different things that are like poking out and breaching this membrane in terms of where we're at currently in society, in terms of our comfort with sexuality, in terms of our recognition and acknowledgement of the true nature of our human being. To me, the kind of Satanist, like really dark, evil, dark magic, sexual sacrificial vibes, it's just Muladhara worship. in my recently calibrated yogic lens, it's not just American, but at least I've interacted with that energy in my American upbringing through the entertainment industry and advertising and marketing predominantly. I've come across that energy in human beings as well, but I'll tell you right now, not really outside of huge cities. I grew up in rural cities and it wasn't really a thing. So there's something happening in terms of our mass social evolution towards this integration of all aspects of our being. Meaning you're not just a sexual being and operating on this level. Meaning you're not just a self-empowered person asserting their will, and that's the only place that you're existing at. Meaning you're not just all lovey-dovey and you have no calibration of how to give your love, and you're just this oozing gushing hippie that's like foaming from the heart with so much love to give to the world, but ultimately unable to participate in other aspects of life. And then we're also not, etc., etc. I'm just going up the kind of totem pole of the energy centers and referring to the dynamics that each one has, and basically saying we're multi-dimensional beings, we're multifunctional beings, we're multi-level beings. And this idea that when I see these cyclists that starts spinning around in my what's one of those big things that I guess like a cotton wheel or a spindle that you get yarn around or whatever. That's what it feels like. It's like tightening up, because ultimately the implications are dense, but it's also quite simple with a generally in-depth perspective on anthropological history. Because our lower sexual nature for the longest, from like, and again, I need a historian with me to be able to point this out. It's not really my specialty. My specialty is like organism growth recognition and path trajectory, isolation, to be able to recognize, comment, and articulate on, because ultimately it's like looking at the branches as they're growing out. I guess like nature observation is my specialty, I guess. But that's it. So we used to be living down here in our root chakra, in our lower red center as our vision, because our genitals were ultimately determining. But see, even back when we were, let's just say, let's look at animals. Like, they're gonna ultimately choose the best mate for, and that means whatever. The butterfly is doing its dance, the deer is like headbutting another deer, the rams are headbutting, like everybody's fighting amongst the genders, or at least the males are, for the best females. That seems to be the gist of how life works. As it's really just the good sperm looking for good eggs to sustain living. And that's really the baseline of our being before we have spiritual and emotional access. And so I feel like this is ultimately kind of what I said I wasn't going to go into, but I'm not going into it. This is ultimately a reference to the Garden of Eden, that we have fallen and we need to now cover ourselves up. So what the fuck happened? Why did all of a sudden we just go, I need to cover my nakedness? So Lucifer whispered things in our ear after our feminine receptivity pulled from the tree from which information and knowledge grew from. It's an interpretation, just some words off the top of my head, not getting too far into that. But again, implication of hiding our sexual nature, hiding our monkey nature. What are we? Let's be objective. If I took this hat off and I took all this material stuff off and I wasn't in a car holding an iPhone and I was in the jungle butt-ass naked and I hadn't shaved for like 2 years, I'd look like a monkey, fam. You'd look like a monkey. Picture all the women in your life that you love so dearly. Picture them if they hadn't shaved their legs or armpits or put makeup on in the entirety of you knowing them. Go ahead, mentally visualize that real quick. I'm driving, so I can't. But close your eyes and picture what it would be like for all the women that you think are so sexy to have no makeup, no hairdo, no cleanliness protocol other than like preservation at the base minimum level for comfort, but not for social masculine fish hooking. This is all this social construct that I'm trying to continue to bring this conversation back to, because that is what I feel like, one, is this video's purpose, and then two, is a reason why a lot of us are fucking going nuts, and it's really confusing, because it doesn't make sense. And that's the thing, is that the media war on our minds and on our subconscious, because the lower dimensional entities, and again, not to get into that, don't even picture entities or demons or whatever that word conjures up for you, but just picture like people who live from the dick, people who do this lower vibrational living as their base fundamental line, that are, again, if you've watched Zeitgeist, you have context, If you haven't, then you need to keep peeling back the layers of reality as it's been taught to you by your social construct upbringing. And so that's it. To recognize to recognize full expression, or even full potential, but to recognize the fullness of our entirety as beings, we have to recognize each ends of the spectrum. And we're definitely spiritual beings, and we're definitely like primal. Like this to me is a big door handle. Why is pooping so taboo? If you're watching this video, you poop. If you haven't pooped today, I hope you poop soon, because that means that you're not well and you're eating things that are clogging up your system, which is another conversation and another video as well. But what is the deal with our hidden, like, protectionistic secrecy with our lower nature? Why is that there? Why aren't we all getting in why aren't we all going and joining those folks that are riding around on bicycles naked? Why isn't that what everybody's doing? That's a good question. I'll leave it there, because ultimately, after saying all that, I should probably just leave it on a question, because I'm still exploring this stuff, and ultimately my perspective and my lens has fragmented clarity and reflection on a number of components of this big, wild, maze-like puzzle thing called society. And yeah, anyways, vibes.